So good evening, everyone. My name is Segra Nair. We're just waiting for more individuals to join the session this evening. So we'll just give it another minute or so. Okay, I think we're good to get started. Again, good evening, everyone. My name is Segra Nair. I'm the director of Milpark Business School. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening to join us in what I hope is going to be an really interesting, exciting conversation about a unique opportunity that we have within Milpark Business School itself. This evening, I am joined by Mark Peters, who is the lecturer of the module, Tatu Bapela, one of the alumni, Victoria, who is also another alumni of the business school, as well as has attended previous exchange programs, and then Evelyn Canigan, who is the program manager for the MBA program, and another at the business school. I'm now going to invite each one of them, starting off with Mark, just to say a wee bit about themselves before we get started with the actual discussion of the Business and Emerging Markets module. Mark?
Okay, thank you, Segra. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this information evening. My name is Mark Peters. I'm a part-time faculty member at Milpark Business School. My specialization is in the area of international business and strategy, and I'm looking forward to being with you on the program in December. Thanks, Segra.
Thanks, Mark. Evelyn?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Evelyn Canigan, the program manager, and my function is to support students through their academic learning journey and to ensure that you have the best experience on the module. So I'm here to partner with you through this amazing business and emerging markets learning experience, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you, Segra.
Thank you, Evelyn. Tatu?
Hi, my name is Tatu Apela. I attended the BIMA course a few years ago. Exciting experience. Currently working at FMB. I'm a head of hypersegments and niches in Transact team.
Great. Thank you so much, Tatu. Victoria?
Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria, and I was also part of the BIMA program in 2019. And I'm excited. I'm also an alumni. I'm excited to chat to you guys about it. And I'm currently doing my DBA actually with Milpark right now. And it's part of this whole journey. You guys will find out more. But yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much, everyone. So to the delegates that have joined us, so this is an evening where we get an opportunity to share with you a wee bit of one of the modules that we run on the MBA program in particular. It's one of these modules, as the name would suggest, it's a business and emerging markets module. And Mark will tell us a wee bit more just now in terms of what that actually means and just the focus itself. But every year we get an opportunity at the business school to take individuals to different parts of the globe and to experience a people, a culture, business, to get exposure to the laws, to the regulations of a particular country, as a way of bringing back to South Africa, to the African continent, in terms of sharing of experiences that one has basically gained in the country that basically, one has visited, etc. So it's a highly dynamic experience at that. And this year, without, missing a beat in terms of, putting on a really good international exchange, we're offering this opportunity for delegates to go off to the UAE itself. So with that being said, Mark, I'm going to get right into it. Students have this opportunity to choose between two electives on the MBA program. As you also know, when students do take this, if they are non-degreed students, they do get credit for this once they, apply for the MBA program as well. So the proverbial question, Mark, is, give us a wee bit more about just this elective. I mean, it's a fantastic program. It's 8 days. It starts off on December 7th. Students return back on December 15th. I looked at the program and I'm like, shoo, I wish I could, slip into someone's bag and to be taken off as well, because you've got just an excellent lineup of companies, conversations, talks, etc. So tell us a bit more about just the elective itself, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Sigrun. Yeah, colleagues, nice to be with you this evening. So we will, as described by Sigrun, we will travel to Dubai and the Abu Dhabi. We are going to look at a wide variety of organizations, from relatively young tech startup companies to the South African Business Chamber, to the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange. And the idea, Sigrun, is that we would develop an understanding of how to do business in another emerging market. Is also to compare political landscapes with South Africa, social landscapes, technology, and most importantly, the economy. And get, I think we have 10 visits planned, Sigrun, so to get an idea of how these companies entered a market like Dubai, what they do successfully. And of course, in the back room, colleagues, we'll be looking at maybe what are they not doing so well, and where could we, as South Africans, add value or do it differently. And I think Victoria and Tato, who I've met on a previous introductory session, could comment. But I think one of the biggest takeaways is also the network that we develop, both with the fellow colleagues who go on the trip with us. So, living together, being together in the same hotel, in the same bus for several days, you get to know each other quite well. So that's a real positive. But it's also to find links with other people doing things differently in other markets. And there might be opportunities for you to connect with them before, during, and after the trip. So, Sigrun, that's kind of it. So we look at, for those who've done your strategy module already, we would be looking at the external macro environment that they're operating in, the technology environment, the economy. The competitive landscape is very important because Dubai has the most tech startups at the moment. I think at the moment they're beating the US in that case, and they have more money available for startups, specifically technology startups. So, Sigrun, we want to understand that market and understand where we as South African leaders, managers, entrepreneurs can make a difference in a market like that. But also, just a quick comment, and Eve might talk about it later on, the assignment that we have is highly practical. It's looking at developing a business in that market. So that makes it quite exciting. Do we see opportunities for a Dubai or a Abu Dhabi business to come to South Africa, or vice versa? So thanks, Sigrun. Yeah, I hope that, very happy to take questions a little later.
No, brilliant. Absolutely, Mark. So yeah, I mean, when one considers Dubai and where it was, like 50, 60 years ago and where it is right now, in terms of the leading indicators, in terms of just development itself, including also technology, creation of new cities, etc. And the technology that's going into those cities, it just poses so many learning opportunities for us as South Africans to bring those lessons back here. So absolutely. To the delegates that are on the call, on your screen, you will find also a green label banner that says BEMA program detail. If you click on that there, you will get access to, of course, a whole lot of information relating to just the module itself. So feel free to click on that and just look through the brochure around the detail. We also have a chat, so if you've got any questions as we are basically speaking, by all means, just jot down your questions in the chat, and there's, we'll get to the questions, and I will definitely bring it in to different individuals to answer. So Mark, yep, there's this 8 days of visiting companies, hearing from different individuals, etc. The program though starts off a few days before, Mark, in terms of what you expect from them. Right. Okay, great. Thanks. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, so Eve can also help that side, but there are 2 lectures that we will have on business in emerging markets, and we will do that before we go. And that's just to give a briefing, set the scene, set the landscape. What are the types of critical success factors? Well, what is the difference in issues like taxation? We read a lot about different markets in our media, Segrun, and so nice to pin those down and get people interested, so that we don't arrive completely cold, that we've had a decent briefing beforehand. So we have 2 lectures scheduled before the program runs. And then, of course, we would be available to chat about the companies that we go to see. And if I could just, very quickly, Segrun, and you've already pointed out to delegates online the green tab at the bottom that they can look at. It looks like the Springboks Checkers 60/60 tab. They can have a look at that and get a bit more of the detail. But I just wanted to say two things very quickly. So we've got, and I just picked a few, I didn't pick all of them, but Swift International, so Tato, a guy like you in the financial services, that would be really interesting. DP World, which a couple of years ago bought over Imperial, and they are the headline at the Wanderers Stadium these days. South African Business Council, that for me is fascinating, Segrun, because they weren't there the last time I was there, and it's interesting that they see that South Africa has chosen Dubai as a market that's of interest to them. We'll also look at the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange and the financial regulator. So that's a bus trip to there. So just to say to delegates that's an idea, but all of them are listed. They're pretty much confirmed at this point, so you'll get an idea. And Segrun, the one point I did want to make, I'm guessing it'll come up later on, there is a lot of time in the evenings and a couple of afternoons that we've allowed the students to have their own time if they have family or friends or companies that they specifically wanted to visit. There, we haven't packed it. I've been on trips where we tried to do 3 and 4 a day, meetings a day, and people are exhausted. So we haven't done that. There's plenty of time for delegates to catch up with family, friends, as I say, if they need to do that, or make suggestions to Milpark about other things that we could do. And we have allowed a couple of cultural visits that are listed. There's many opportunities in Dubai, and about 8 days is about a good time to do that. I've tried to do it in the past in 5, and you always find that there are other things that you could do. Thank you.
Yeah, no, brilliant, absolutely, Mark. For sure, I'm going to come back to. It's much more than just an academic program. There's the cultural side to it, and there's also enjoying of people and what the cities have to offer as well. But you said it, the South African Business Council setting itself up in Dubai itself, and clearly demonstrating the strategic importance of this particular geographical area, to us as South Africa. Not only also in terms of, as you said as well, the number of expats that are living from South Africa in Dubai itself. So there are definitely more and more stronger links that are coming through also in terms of just business. Mark, I'm going to just now switch things up a bit and move on to our alumni. Victoria, the proverbial question to a student sitting and to a delegate, sitting in a chair, perhaps when you were in the same position a couple of years ago, is, Why go on an international exchange? I mean, you were a student back in the day, which makes sense. You have to do something in terms of an elective itself. But why did you choose this particular elective, Victoria?
Well, when I went in 2019, it was just after the BRICS summit. So I was very curious about this specific union that we have with all these different countries. And I really, really wanted to see what was in Brazil and why was South Africa included. So for me, it was a matter of, I think the biggest thing was trying to expand the idea of how can we really, really tangibly, even as a company, expand our operations into Brazil, and who are the connections that naturally on a good given day we wouldn't have access to. So that's the nice thing about it. I knew that we'd get access to people that I wouldn't in my network be able to reach. So that was my biggest motivation.
Brilliant, brilliant. We try to make this point, and it's wonderful hearing you say this over here. As a student looking for opportunities from a market, penetration point of view, a foreign market, growing your own, product brand presence in those foreign markets. So absolutely, and I hear you. Tatu, in terms of just you and your exchange program, how did that contribute to your MBA experience? Again, I mean, this came at a particular point, having Mark alluded to it, having done strategy, having done your functional areas of business, etc. You're literally getting to the end of the MBA experience. So what did it mean? Yeah, I mean, coming where it was and for you. You're on mute, Tatu.
Good observation. Yeah, so for me, it was about connecting the dots. So you spend a lot of your time doing a lot of theory, being theoretical in application, etc. So when you do get this opportunity to actually go into another country, test your theory in another environment, and also collect data points that also informs your position. So whether or not your idea will work, yes or no, and you'll get that information when you actually are in that country. I think it's important also from a growth perspective. So you being able to see another country, see how they operate, also allows you to have a different lens and also compare South Africa and outside of your business problem that you're trying to solve, just from a day-to-day perspective. Are we doing enough of the right things? There's a question mark. And if we are, what are the things that we are doing well that we need to celebrate about, and things that can be improved on? Let us all collaborate on and resolve that. So it's just a great way of actually applying a different filter or a different lens to your day-to-day life. And that opportunity, accompanied by the fact that you've got an assignment, you've got something tangible to deliver on, allows you to be a little bit more critical and observe things with more of a business-minded lens as opposed to just purely leisure.
Right. Absolutely, Tatu.
Can I just add to what the two colleagues have said, and Tatu, Victoria, maybe if you want to comment on this. I do think, Segrin, it's easier to do what Tatu and Victoria have said when you're part of a group coming in with an organization like Milpark Business School. You can make connections. Much easier to do it as part of a wider group than to try and do it on your own. Getting these sorts of meetings on your own, we've all done it. We've done it, but it's a lot more difficult. So you're hitting quite a wide range of organizations in a short period of time, that if you were trying to do something like this, market development discussion would be quite difficult. So thanks, Segrin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is a brilliant point, Mark, in terms of a program that has been set up with so many different companies, to explore, to investigate, and to Victoria's point, whether it is looking for market opportunities within those particular companies in a particular country, or to Tatu's point, how to integrate something that is really, really practical. And this is what we're known for at Milpark Business School. I mean, this is a phenomenal opportunity to get you out of the classroom, so to speak, into the real world experiences, conversations with individuals, learning from folks about how business gets done, in a very specific country or in a specific geographical space. So for sure, absolutely. Victoria, I'm going to come back to you now. And, you mentioned Brazil. It's a Portuguese-speaking country itself. And to this end, can you speak to some of the perhaps cultural differences, if any, that you experience, during your exchange? We also speak about Milpark students being older, many more years of experience. We're talking about managers, leaders, sometimes at senior leadership positions itself. How did this basically play itself out, with the school that you went to, the university that you went to, in the context of your trip?
Okay, in terms of my trip, it was really, really amazing. In terms of the challenges that I had to face was obviously language barrier. The people spoke Portuguese and obviously I spoke English, but I had an app for that, thank God. But in terms of the culture, because I'm such an enthusiast in terms of traveling, I actually got a book called Culture Map by Professor Enron Meyer, which I used as a prep to be able to address the people in Brazil. I use that also to tangibly to be able to link practically to my CEO on why I was doing this trip. How could I communicate this effectively without obviously these insulting people? Because if you've traveled long enough into different countries, you realize that certain things that you do can actually insult the other person on the other side of the table. So for me, as I was head of operations at that time and finance, and coming in from that point of view and be able to reach that network of people, I knew that as a student, I was coming in not as the head, but as a student. So they were more open in explaining what they did, how they did it, and why they did it. So for me individually, I had to learn how to rearrange my brain in terms of tech, which was amazing. So yeah.
Okay, great stuff. What would we do without these apps in terms of making our lives a wee bit better? So absolutely hear you, integrating of technology wherever we go. Tatu, one more question for you before I switch again. The question that always comes up, Tatu, is I've laid out a lot of money for, especially as a student, on the program itself. And I now need to find funding for an exchange program. Many of our students, delegates, know this, of course, because of the stuff that they've read on our website. They know that the international exchange immersion is part and parcel of the experience, so there are no surprises there. But the question still remains, Sato, how did you, for example, fund your exchange?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So on my side, it was partially a bursary. So you went to my organization, I put down a business case in terms of what's the benefit of me actually going to go study this particular subject, and then also what would be the pros and cons, and then presented it and got funding off the back of that. But I do know that there's multiple mechanisms. So even in an organizational perspective, you can split out the program, apply per year in terms of your subjects. So if you're doing an 18-month course or you're spreading it out over 2 years, you can split out your subjects, apply for a bursary per year, and just make sure that you put majority of your subjects in a particular order so that you're left with your research proposal as well as your BEMA subject. So you can actually split it out and then make sure that you get the funding over the 2 years. And then the other idea as well is, you can go and apply for a student loan. So student loan is also an option that you can apply for, and there can be favorable terms. And then as well, Milpark, that I'm aware of, also you can pay in advance. So you can actually start budgeting for this particular program and set out some funds. So instead of looking at it and saying, wait until this particular moment to do this, you can register for your MBA program and then in advance just consistently drop some money into it, knowing that you'll have a bit of a kitty after a year or so, which will then allow you to cover the deficit, which will be a little bit smaller than just approaching it. Because when you look at it, it can be quite daunting, but the value is, we still talk about it today.
Yeah, no, sure. I hear you. I mean, it's a classical return on investment decision that we all, get stuck with. So Evelyn, I'm going to bring you into the conversation itself. I mean, Dato mentioned three, different opportunities, including also Milpark's approach to this. So I want to just ask from you. I mean, you speak to students all the time. Students are always kind of trying to get your advice, your sense, etc., from an institutional point of view. So, to this end, what advice can you give the delegates tonight that you can share with them about some of the questions, and perhaps also a second part to the question, even is the AOD form or kind of payment option that we have as well.
Thank you, Segrin. Yes, to Tata's point, the institution Milpark does offer a payment plan arrangement, which is usually broken down into a deposit and periodic payments up until the exam date. So this is a great option which our current students utilize. And we also have a close partnership with financing institutions such as Capitec, where there are better rates offered to Milpark students. So for the best option for funding, I would suggest students contact either myself or our support department, and we will guide you on that. In terms of the advice to students who want to pursue this module, the feedback from our alumni, including Tato and Victoria, has always been positive. This has been a great module. It's a learning experience, as well as there's so much of fun had on these international experiences. I've had the privilege myself of sitting and observing the classes, and I really enjoyed the BEMA module. And I believe that it supports students who want to become entrepreneurs, who are thinking of growing their business, or students who work with global companies. So the feedback has been phenomenal, specifically being exposed to how business is done internationally, immersing themselves in the culture. And I think what better way to observe this than through this formal mechanism. But really, it seems it comes across as a lot of fun. I've had great feedback from alumni who completed this module.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Evelyn. So Mark, I'm going to come back to you now. You spoke about what students can expect over the 8 days. We also recognize, of course, that our students many of our students come from places where they hold certain positions, etc. When students and delegates go on, an exchange program like this, they're really ambassadors of, first and foremost, Milpark Business School, and then, of course, ambassadors of the country. There's 8 days of, company visits, engaging with quite influential individuals, etc. How do you expect your students to show up, Mark, in an elective like this?
Yeah, great question, Segrin. And let's be honest about it. We all show up a little differently, don't we? Some days we're really engaged. Maybe one day we haven't had a great sleep, or we were out late and we're not as engaged. So my job, Segrin, would always be to try and manage that as a group, depending on the size of the group, of course. And that will come later on. What I have found personally is that people have self-selected, firstly, to be on the MBA program. So they're at a certain level. They've invested a lot of their own time and money. And now they're doing that again on the BEMA module, in this case in Dubai. So I rarely have that challenge. But what I sometimes do as a kind of an internal trick is to, over the 8 days, is ask different people in the group to play the lead on that particular visit, and say, for example, Victoria, Tato, Joe, will you play the lead on this and ask the questions, especially if there are none. And then what I really enjoy doing, and I think adds a lot of value to all of us in the group, is to try and do a debrief, even if it's very short, at the end of every working day. Not at the end of the cultural visits, obviously, Sigrun, but the end where we've done 2 or 3 visits in a day. What did we learn? What would we do differently? And our colleagues have spoken about that. And I did want to raise one issue, Sigrun, that Tato raised, which is linked to your question, and that is be smart about the way that you apply internally. If you're going to go for an organizational funding or bursary, be smart on how you apply for that, and remember to speak to the strategic objectives of your organization and link the trip to that. We'll have some flexibility, Segrun, in how we evaluate that at the end of the program, but that's quite nice. Does this trip meet strategic objectives of the organization that you work for? And the obvious one is a growth strategy, market development, product development, and to make sure that you're saying this will help us as an organization, because that's what we want to hear. If I'm going to let you go for 8 days and it's going to cost you X amount of money, what value do we get back as the organization? And I think that's important. And I did like Eve's comment. She actually smiled, so she'll have to tell us a bit more about that when she says that the delegates were having fun. We need to know more about that. Yeah, I think that's important. Learning has to be, and the breakaways where groups of, so we're not going en masse on maybe on a cultural visit to one of the museums or one of the watering holes, Segrun, and we'll do that in smaller groups, obviously, and that has to be fun, and we enjoy the cultural activity. And I really liked the way Victoria showed us that cultural map books, because I have done this numerous times and loved every one of them. But even I recently, Segrun, I was in Saudi for Saudi Telecom about 2 months ago, and I went to shake hands with one of the female delegates on the program, a senior leader in Saudi Telecom, and you don't do that. But it was instinctive, because it's what we do in South Africa. We try to find those points of connectivity with our colleagues, our friends, and that is not acceptable in that environment. So we learn all the time.
Absolutely brilliant, Mark, for sure. Just to pick up on a couple of things that you said, and to reiterate them. One of the things that we say about Milpark over and over again when students join us is the importance of reflecting on the journey, on an exercise, etc. And this is absolutely built in to this immersion program that we're inviting delegates to participate in. It's so important because there's so much of information that one gets also exposed to have some quiet moments and to kind of just play it back and to just reflect on what one has learned, what one has enjoyed about the visits, etc. And we really enjoy hearing back from you, because your input also, whether it's in this form or in a more formalized form in terms of the evaluation of the course, helps us improve future offerings. And to your point, Mark, I mean, this is what makes it so wonderful, right? It's also this cultural exchange, and sure, we trip up and we all are learning, etc. And we make these innocent mistakes in terms of putting out a hand to shake somebody else's, and and we get the polite, no, I can't really. And then we're like, okay, I recognize where you're coming from, and it's not about me, etc. So absolutely so. I hear you. Tato and Victoria, I would like to come back to you now and just ask a few more questions. Again, coming back to especially the students in today's virtual audience that is pondering why I should, go on this exchange. What advice, Tato, would you give to that particular student? Was sitting on the fence, undecided, and is really trying to figure out whether it's the value proposition to the company that Mark alluded to, you indicating the return on investment, both from a personal point of view as well as what it meant to your own work?
Yeah, so I think the advice I'd give to them is, looking at your MBA journey, it's not every day that you're going to be doing an MBA. So you need to maximize this opportunity in its entirety. That means, interacting on campus with all your energy that you can provide, the course, that is giving your best when you're doing your research proposal, and also is putting up your hand where possible to take this opportunity to do the BIMA course. I think the advantage of actually doing it is saying that you've completed the end-to-end experience of an MBA course, which is, one, there is international exposure. So you've taken theoretical knowledge, you've made it practical. You've also interacted with people that are very different to who you are. You see them on the news, you see them on TV, you see them in pop culture. But when you're actually going into their environment and their world, you start really understanding what gets them ticking, how they process the world, why are they successful, what are they doing better? And I think that for me was an eye-opener. We managed to go to Sao Paulo. We went to the Amazon as well in Brazil, and that experience in itself, seeing how businesses are leveraging more free trade in Amazon, was exciting. And also just to go into Sao Paulo, going into a shop, and you don't even have to check out anything. The technology that was present in 2019 was amazing. So for me, coming back, I would always say to the person that's thinking about it is, in your current environment, will you get another opportunity like this to be exposed to how people think, act, and do things? And if that's an opportunity for you to go and explore, please take it with both arms, because it doesn't come again.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it doesn't come again. And the fact that you had this a couple of years ago, and it almost seems as though you had it like yesterday. It just stays with one. So speaking
Correct.
of which, Victoria, I mean, when you went on your exchange itself, there are different moments that stand out, stick out, for different reasons. It is, as you might have said, somebody speaking to you in Portuguese, you speaking English, and you're trying to figure out how to connect with this person, and you bring out the good old book, to try and translate a particular experience. But can you share one of those experiences that absolutely just to this day, just resonates and sticks out and goes like, wow, I really, valued this more than anything else?
Well, one of my biggest moments was actually getting to talk to the sales representative from the next company. He was working on an application, and they were telling us on how the application is going to be based on an existing bank, and just that exposure to new tech and the type of what was it? It was a conference that he went to with all the Silicon Valley big department or head of departments and everything, and how he used that to leverage. That was more like an aha moment for me, because it wasn't actually on the trip that I got to connect with him. It was after the trip on LinkedIn that we started chatting. So that was my aha moment, but it didn't happen on the trip. It happened afterwards. So I was able to reach out to the guy and say, listen here, you mentioned this conference, you mentioned tech and everything, and which brought me to this point. Currently, I'm doing my DBA on decentralized artificial intelligence. My passion for tech grew as a result of interacting with this guy. I started researching deeper in terms of blockchain technology. As Tato actually mentioned, that they were very advanced. So my perspective of Brazil, whilst I was doing the desktop research, actually changed as I saw how advanced they are. But another part that was an aha moment on the trip was that how they catered for their own people. Everything about the companies we went to, whether technology, whether the app, whether banking, whatever it was, they focused on their population, keeping to their culture. That inspired me as a South African to bring that same mindset and saying, listen, yeah, technology doesn't say I have to get away with South African culture. I can work with something in terms of tech and maintain the African culture, which was not my viewpoint when I left, because I always thought, bring the Western people, bring the Western franchise, and let them come and help us. But for me, the aha moment was like, oh my goodness, I'm meeting people who are doing it for their own people with what they have, their resources, and catering to the nuances of their country and their country alone.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Mark, I want to just pick up on this theme, and we spoke a bit about this earlier on. There's a focus on BRICS plus countries in terms of the business and emerging markets module. There's so many learnings in terms of whether it is how cities are structured, how companies are run, the technology, etc. And I alluded to this earlier on, 60 years ago, where Dubai was and where it is right now. Again, in the context of just the program that has been, put together for the delegates, are there specific things that you want to just highlight, Mark, that would just, from a technology point of view in particular? I mean, you spoke about Swift, you spoke about DP World, etc. But just, and students will have their own experiences, in terms of just, kind of going through the city, etc., being transported, etc., and seeing things. But are there things that you would like to highlight specifically, Mark?
Nothing that hasn't been discussed already, but maybe I would like to emphasize that every one of us will get out of the trip the focus that we want to. So Victoria spoke about the almost the lens that she saw through after she was there. But that's our experience. Even if we go on holidays with the family, Sigrid, we could all be sitting in the same restaurant or in the same room, and we experience it slightly differently. And I think that's the power of travel and new experiences. So and in the debrief that I spoke about earlier, Sigrid, and that's purely voluntary, by the way, there's no force, you have to say something, but it's to ask people, how did you experience that? How did you experience the company that we went? Is that an opportunity for us in South Africa? And some people will say, I thought it was great, and others will be a little bit bored maybe by that particular one, because I don't need financial regulation as an example. And the one that hasn't been mentioned, Sigrid, and you and I share this in our friendship, is the concept of the English language in Dubai does make it a much easier trip than Tato and Victoria had. So let's be honest about that. Much easier trip. And the food's amazing. The food is just amazing in Dubai, and it's a multicultural environment. I do think Dubai and Abu Dhabi can learn from us in South Africa. One of the challenges that they experience, Segrin, is that they have a very, very small population of people who are native to Dubai, and they look after them, but they really have a very bad reputation of looking after everyone else, and you hear horror stories. And I'd love to have that discussion with the delegates as we go along. What can they learn from us? And we're much more open than they are in the UAE to making those connections. I think, having been there a few times. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Mark. And thank you so much for just saying this as well. So it's, there's always two sides to the coin over here. As much as we're going to take in a whole lot, that is, the delegates going to learn a whole lot about, this particular geographical space, we also have so much to offer the delegates, to offer others that are going to be part and parcel of this, particular experience as well. So absolutely well said. Evelyn, I'm going to come back to you now. Can you tell us a bit about just the application, Evelyn? When does the application close? And again, just your vast experience in terms of dealing with students, engaging with students, especially around an application process. If you could just highlight for the delegates a few things that they should pay attention to when they apply for this particular exchange program.
Oh, Sigrid, thank you. The applications close on the 1st of September. The module kicks off towards the end of September. Like Mark mentioned, we do have classes scheduled in September, October, and November before the travel dates. And students may apply, or candidates may apply online for a quote or to register for the module through the qualification route or through the non-degree route. It's a really straightforward application process for registration. But if there are any questions, candidates can contact myself or the support email that's been shared on the chat. Yeah, it's a really straightforward process for registration.
Eve,
Okay, great. Thanks, Eve. Sure, Mark,
sorry,
go ahead.
Apologies. Can I jump in? Eve, tell us if you're in a position to do that. Tell us a little bit about the logistics. Travel insurance. Who do we stay with? Are we all booked in our own rooms? Are we sharing with colleagues to reduce costs? What's your experience of people doing this in the past? There are always questions I got. I didn't get it. I didn't get it on this group. And maybe Tato and Victoria could give us an idea what happened in your group as well.
Yes, thanks, Mark. That's a good question. For most of our trips, it has been individual rooms, so students get their own rooms.
Yeah.
It's usually in the same hotel. You have the same travel arrangements, unless you want to have, for example, if you want to go shopping and you want to, schedule your own Uber ride to go to a specific mall. But generally, the students stay together. They have dinners together. They stay in the same hotel. Tato and Victoria can also perhaps share.
Yeah, so from my experience, I agree with Evelyn. So you have your own space, and you move as a collective when you're like going from one side to another. And then if you do want to, split out into smaller groups, post your activities that have been scheduled, it was always welcomed as long as you're not late, and that can happen.
Yeah.
So. And the bus does not wait for you; it will leave you behind. Yeah. So it's happened before.
Tato, you need to come with me. I can see you're a disciplinarian. You need to be there. Yeah, because it's not fair that the bus then is late arriving at a reception, and lots of people. We want to show up and be present. And Evelyn, I'm sure the tickets got travel insurance, that sort of thing, in case anybody has a problem.
Sure. All the details are arranged prior to travel, so we'll share those details with like the vaccinations, the passport information like that. Yeah.
If any delegates are traveling first class, you can let me know, and I'll join you at the front of the plane as we travel. And colleagues, I'm looking forward to chatting with you in a little bit more detail in the lectures. I'll provide some frameworks for you in terms of what to look out for. And I tend to integrate all the modules that you've done on your MBA: strategy, leadership, marketing, operations. And we'll talk about the leaders toolbox and the strategy toolbox, and what are this company, what do you think they focused on? And the idea, and Tato alluded to this, is that the idea is to focus on what have we learned and how do we apply it in a market like United Arab Emirates. So we're looking forward to having you on the program. Please let us know if there are questions. Send them to Milpark. I think Hanley's going to put up the email address for you to communicate if there's specific questions. And I like the word that Tato used, moving as a collective. That's quite important. If you miss the bus, you make your own way there. And again, in Dubai, that would be easier than Sao Paulo, I think. Hopping on a taxi where they speak English, you say, I have to beat the bus to reception because otherwise there'll be penalties and fines for being late. Yeah, thank you. So that's me. Thanks.
Just to add to that, on my personal story, I actually almost missed the bus. I had to chase it. When you went shopping. One day of shopping, and I lost track of time. And I found myself with a bag running after the bus. Thank God they saw me and actually waited for me. So that's what shopping does. Let's go and enjoy, but don't forget why you're there.
Yeah, yeah. Victoria, we left a guy behind in Shanghai, and he had to find his way in China to a meeting, which wasn't that far, about 30 minutes, but he never forgave me. And I didn't see him, but his colleague said, "No, you must go, you must go." And he was waving at the back, chasing us. And but he never forgave me. He works for Netcare now, and I've always often joked with him on his birthday, "Are you still not talking to me?" There's radio silence. Yeah. Okay.
And that's
Sigrid,
the beauty, I
thank you.
think, of this whole thing is that the connections that you make after the program. I mean, Tato and I are still in contact, even though it's not frequent, but you build really strong bridges. And that's what MBA is all about, building a network, getting to know people. Because your classmates are actually going to be your network in the real world. And that's what basically BEMA brings it all together practically. That in as much as we had so much theory, practically is that your classmates or the people we meet will be part of your network.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Victoria. You're going to get offered a job by Milpark just now, eh? Be careful in the marketing department. Yeah, thank you.
Well, she's a passionate alumnus of the school, and clearly, she really enjoyed her exchange program. And to what she just basically said, just around the practical relevance and how you finish off, a 2-year demanding program, being in a different country amongst different people, different culture, learning so much, bringing back opportunities, whether it's to South Africa, imparting your own knowledge as well to other individuals. Datu, as a way of also just basically finishing off, questions to both you and Victoria as alumni. The most rewarding experience you had during your exchange program?
Wow. So I think there was a moment we went to Sao Paulo. We started walking one of our off days, and I walked with one of the classmates. It ended up getting dark, and we completely forgot. We could not get our way back to the hotel. So we literally are taking our phones out, trying to use maps, but we couldn't use the maps, trying to navigate. And literally the hotel was probably like a kilometer away from where we were. And one of the guys that actually saw us, that knew a bit of English, said, "Oh, you guys look lost because I've seen you guys walk past this road 4 or 5 times. Where you guys want to get to?" And we told him, and he said, "No, let me walk with you guys." And he took us up until we could actually see the hotel. And he helped us get to the hotel. And I think for me, it was that sense that, even outside of South Africa, there is still that sense of Ubuntu and like people wanting to help other people. And, you will find the good. They talk about Brazil being one of the highest crime countries, but I never experienced that. And, what I experienced was people that were very helpful from the start to the end of the trip. And for me, that was just one of the pivotal moments to say, wow, I could have been robbed, but they never chose that. They chose to help us.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely brilliant in terms of the humanity of people. Mark?
No, I was just going to say, Tato just highlights an issue that we'll talk about when we get there, is always travel with a buddy or two. I don't want anyone doing anything and being a hero and trying to do stuff on their own. It's important because we don't know the environment, and that's a great example. And yeah, it's good to hear it. Thanks, Tato. Good to hear
it. Victoria, I'm going to just round off now. Any last kind of thoughts that you would like to just share again with delegates itself? I'm not too sure of any questions that have come up in the chat, so I'm going to, after your question, or after your answer rather, just check in. But yeah, before we switch gears, Victoria, last thoughts from your end?
Just briefly, I mean, initially at the beginning of this conversation, we spoke about strategy, and a wise man once told me that strategy is all about perspective, position, and plan. So as you go in, make sure you are well researched in terms of the country you're going into, and also the different companies. Because what I found is that my desktop research that I did before the trip when I came back was null and void. However, because I knew that my perspective had changed, I could align my perspective with what I saw and what I experienced, I was able to realign my assignment and reroute my experience into another department of the company. So that brought growth in an unexpected place of the company, which now I'm glad to say it was an educational part of the company, which I'm glad to say this year we had our first graduation. So as you go in there, take it as seriously as humanly possible, because this is one opportunity you will get to be able to glean and see another country in a commerce space, in a business space, in an academic space. And this is it's an invaluable experience. You can't put any monetary value to it. You can't even compare it to going on holiday. This is seriously like the best networking opportunity you will ever get for the rest of your life. Those are my last thoughts. And enjoy
Excellent.
the food. I remember we actually ate ants one day in Brazil as a delicacy. You know why? Ants are a delicacy.
Wow.
That's
Wow. All right. Brilliant. Absolutely so. So be open to perspectives because there will be opportunities when, as you say, you have a particular perspective before you go to a place, and then our worlds get flipped upside down. Be open to the disruption that experience is going to kind of create to us, as well as be open to having certain food experiences that Victoria has just basically described. Mark, to bring it back to you, any final comments for and thoughts, including
No,
also
just
questions that you might have?
yeah. Thanks, Sigrun. I think we've done the thing. Just to say, I look forward to working with you all. I look forward to getting to know you. I look forward to the experience and experiences and chapters as yet unwritten. And I look forward to working with you to see what your challenges are in your organization that could be brought into this 8-day excursion. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you found it worthwhile.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. Evelyn, from your end, in terms of just wisdom that you can share with the delegates?
Just that I think it's going to be, as Victoria and Tato highlighted, a brilliant educational experience and a networking experience. But if you have any questions or you would like more in-depth information about the outcomes or the travel arrangements, please contact me or the support desk, and we are here to support you. And I also look forward to working with you through this module. Thank you.
So that email address, Evelyn, that you put into the chat is mbs@milpark.ac.za, yeah?
Yes.
Tato has just written something in the chat which is absolutely invaluable. It also goes with what Victoria had said. Tato, I'm not going to steal your thunder in terms of what you've written. So I'm going to turn over the floor to you, Tato, and just allow you to say a few words as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, so I think with the planning piece, one, if you are going to do the BIMA module, speak to previous students that did well. Understand what were the pitfalls, what did they, do well in, etc. Make sure that when you do your initial part of your assignment, you want to make sure that the facts are there, but you're also going in there to go get some validation and to confirm stuff. Document, so notepad, pen and paper, record, have informal meetings with people, be engaged, take pictures, be curious about your environment, be a child, be a child at heart who's curious about everything that's happening around them, and engage, and don't be shy. Because the moment you have a lot of evidence, you can substantiate. I interviewed individual X who gave me this viewpoint. This is what I witnessed. Here is the evidence. This always will help in supporting your case, especially when you are either pivoting from an initial assignment where you've got a hypothesis that is not entirely correct, or validating a hypothesis, and that evidence is critical. So it's not an experience where you're just going to go in there. You really need to be wide awake. You need to really be engaged and be active.
Wise words indeed. So thank you so much. So firstly, well, thank you very much for just sharing your insights as the faculty member that is leading this particular elective. Tatu and Victoria, just brilliant advice to individuals in terms of from a personal development point of view, from a return of investment, your impactful words in terms of being planned, being organized, do your research, as Victoria had indicated as well. But importantly, be open to this experience. It's an incredible opportunity to get to know much more about yourself, being disrupted by a different people, a culture, etc. But to the point that Mark had also raised, there has to be a value proposition in all of this, a value proposition that you can, convey to your company itself, in terms of whether it's new markets, as well as opportunities for South African businesses to grow their products, elsewhere, etc. Thank you so much, Evelyn, in terms of just guiding individuals around the application process, and just indicating to individuals again that they can email mbs@milpark.ac.za if they've got questions. Again, from me, Segrin, thank you so much for just taking the time and spending your evening with us. We really look forward to answering, your questions further and to welcoming you on this experience. So thanks so much, everybody.